Welcome back, everybody. We are back with another edition of You Are Dope. Yo, today we are talking about the other two pillars. What we promised you guys, we're going to talk about the emotional pillar, and maybe if we can get into the physical one, we'll talk about that one well. But these are the pillars that the fathers need to show to their kids in order for their kids to, trust their dads and, just things that the dads need to offer to their kids. And we're going to get into that today. And today we got my special guest. We got Kennedy on here, my daughter, and we got my son, JC, on here. And it's going to get a little deep, y'all. I'm going to be honest with you, because we're going to talk about the things that I was missing as a father as far as the emotional part of it. So, if I shed a little tear, it's okay. It's all good. It's okay to be a little emotional. So we're going to kick it off. I'm going to let JC kick it off. And he's going to start. He's going to ask Kennedy a couple questions. So here we go. Let's get it. Actually, I got the question for you. All right. The question is supposed to be, so how did my lack of emotional intelligence reflect on you when you would be emotional? I didn't really know how to handle your emotions as a dad. So how did that affect you growing up?
Okay. So me personally, I'm very emotional. And then I feel like, you not really knowing how to deal with my emotions. Because I remember every time I used to cry, I would be like, why are you crying? Like, suck up those crocodile tears. Like, I'll give you something to cry about. But I think that just made me not want to be emotional. I struggle with that. I used to struggle with that, I guess, growing up a little bit. I used to talk to my mom about it. I used to be like, why am I so emotional? Like, why am I always crying about every little thing? But I think that I just had to get out of thinking that it's a bad thing to be emotional. Because, yeah, of course I don't want to be crying in front of everybody. But I think just hearing from you that it was a bad thing, or hearing from you that I shouldn't be doing it made me a little bit self-conscious of my own personality a little bit.
So it made you self-conscious. Yeah, I can see that. I remember the exact moment that you're talking about too. And we were having a discussion, and all of a sudden you started crying. And then I literally am like, why are you crying? Like, suck it up. Like, get rid of them crocodile tears. And it just made you cry even more. But, as we're referring to, I just didn't know how to regulate my own emotions at that particular time. I'm trying to figure out what's going on with you. And this is no excuse, but I'm trying to figure out what's going on with you while I'm trying to figure out what's going on with me. And it just did not come across good at all. So, yeah, I can definitely see that. Jay, go ahead. I'm sorry. You had something?
I'm going to say, so looking back on that, understanding that you were in that space and now the growth that you've made in the space you're in now, do you recognize there was a turning point or a point where you're like, okay, I got to do something about this? Or do you think it was more so you just gradually started working on yourself and then over time you just started to understand it better?
Nah, there was a key pivotal moment, and it was when Taylor and Kennedy, they both sat me down, and they was like, there's some things that we don't like. And here I'm thinking I'm like father of the year. And they looking at me like, nah, Negro, you are missing the mark in a lot of places. And they literally sat me down. They was like, we don't like it when you talk to us like this. We don't like it when you make comments about our appearance. We don't like when you do this. And honestly, that was hard. That's hard to hear, because here I'm thinking that I'm doing things the right way, or I'm doing things the way that I grew up. And here my kids telling me nah, you not. This really hurts us. This bothers us when you do these things. So the pivotal moment for me was when they started talking to me about those things. And I had to sit and I had to listen, truly, truly listen. And I can even recall them being like, you're not listening to us. You're not listening. You're not. And, that was hard, because here I'm thinking I am an active listener. Here I am like, go ahead, express your feelings. And I really wasn't. So yeah, that was the pivotal moment for me, that it made me aware of it, that something was off. And, I can't sit up here and be like, oh, and just immediately I changed, because I did not immediately change. It wasn't overnight that it happened. And, just to even further that, Jay, we can even talk about you and how I handle my emotions with you growing up. Here you are, how old were you when you lost Mike, when you lost your dad?
I was in the sixth grade, so 12, 13 maybe. 12.
So here you are, 12, 13 years old, and I'm like, my main thing was I understand that you guys lost your father and everything, but I don't want you guys to grow up being assholes. And so I can see how I was a little tough on you about stuff, when I should have been, in hindsight, maybe a little more sensitive to it. Dang, I didn't know how to do that. But let's ask you though, how did my emotions, my lack thereof emotions, affect you growing up?
Wait, I'm sorry. I have a question.
Oops, go ahead.
I'm sorry. So, when JC asked you, was there a moment that, you noticed that, you needed to change? Do you feel like after that, like after you noticed it, did you notice yourself like doing it like actively? Did you notice yourself like actively not listening and stuff like after you realized that I need to change? Like, did you still notice that you were doing that?
Absolutely. Well, before I didn't notice that I was doing it, but once you
Mm-hmm.
guys pointed it out to me, then I was like, because at first you go through denial. It's like, yeah, I'm not like that. What are they talking about? Like, I listen to them. I'm not doing that. And
Mm-hmm.
then you start to think like, damn, like, oh, it was like, well, why did Taylor shut down just now? Well, what tone were you using when you talked to her when she shut down? And so it was me reflecting on those type of things. It was like small little details that I would pay attention to. I'm a Virgo, so I pay attention to like detail, like very, very, very well. I don't know if Virgo has anything to do with it, but I just pay attention to details. So when I would have a reaction or I would do something and something was striking you guys, I would be like, yo, that's you, man. Like you did that. And so it made me reflect on it. Did I answer the question?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it made me just reflect like, man, you this there's something off here and you need to like figure it out what it is. And when I was already going to therapy anyway, but when I was going to therapy, I started talking to my therapist about it. Like, look, I'm not able to handle my kids' emotions. I think I show up in other ways, but I'm not showing up emotionally for them and I don't know what to do. And so she started walking me through some stuff of like things I can do to be a better listener and to not react because I'm a reactor. And so I started working on it in therapy after you guys brought it to my attention. And then I recognized it because self-awareness is key. Like if you don't know that you're doing something, you can't fix it.
Okay.
So Jay, back to you though, like how did my lack of emotions like affect you growing up? Or did it?
I mean, at the time, I felt like I just it's something that I just thought it was normal, right? Like, oh, you're supposed to be tough, just suck it up. And I just kind of thought that was who I am. Like, oh, I don't really have feelings towards stuff. But as I kind of maneuvered through life, I started to realize, like, for me, it affected me with being able to open up to people, trying to let people in. I mean, I've gotten better at it, but it's like, how's everything going? Oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. When really I'm not, but it's like I'm just saying that everything's all right. And I think for me, I noticed it like what started happening with me was I would be really angry. And it's like, what are you so mad for? Like it was I can remember a time after me and Adrena, we had moved in the house and Opie, our pit bull, has this very like high pitched, annoying bark. And he had this ball that he used to push around in the backyard. And it was just a day where did not want to hear the bark and he wasn't listening and he was doing it. And I was like, this is gonna sound bad. I hulked up. I picked up a piece of furniture and I threw it. And I was like, shut the f up. I threw it. I hit the fence. I broke the fence. And then afterwards, I felt so bad. Like I just felt like, man, like what is wrong with you? Like you're a 30 plus year old child. Like what are you doing? And I went inside and told Adrena, I was like, yeah, I kind of got upset and threw some furniture. And I was like, Opie's fine. I didn't hit him, but I broke the fence. And it was like me and her just had a conversation from that. And I was like, okay, I got to work on this a little bit.
Thank God, first of all, I thought you was about to say that you picked up Opie and threw him, threw him
No,
to the
I did
fence.
too. I was like,
Like we about to
No,
have
no,
Peter
no
on our
animal,
ass.
no animal cruelty over here. No animal cruelty over here.
So as we get older and as you guys get older, I mean, Kenny, you 20 now, Jay, you 35, old man. As you guys get older, do you guys notice that things are changing as far as the emotions are concerned? With us, all of us involved. Kennedy, I know that you just went through something. We won't go too far into your personal business, but you and I, we just had breakfast the other day. And you tell people like how the breakfast went for you. Like what happened?
I definitely do see a change, like, especially in our relationship, like just me and you. I think that's, like where I struggled the most, like emotionally, was just with our relationship. And, like a relationship with your dad is a big deal. I feel like that's just something that you need to have. So, when we are able to sit down and just reflect on things that's happened in our life and like reflect on how far that we moved, it really does mean a lot to me. The other day, I was able to sit down with you and talk to you about, you know, like some plans that are going on in my life, like some things that are going on in my life. And it's like a couple years ago, literally 3 years ago, I would not have been able to even sit down at a table with you and like, laugh. So it's just like, I don't know, it feels really good to be able to move on, because I feel like, I really enjoy having a relationship with my dad. I'm like a very family oriented person. So I feel like, when I have my family around me, when I have a good relationship with my family, it really like makes me feel really good. And also, I have I have accepted myself, like, in the fact that I'm emotional, but I still do catch myself like apologizing for crying sometimes. Like, it's just out of habit. But when I apologized for crying the other day, you were like, you know what you told me? You said, crying is natural, crying is a normal reaction. And I said to you, I said, I see the growth. I really do, because like, and I don't mean to make it sound like a bad thing, but it's just like, you've grown a lot. And sometimes when, like, I think sometimes, like, when people say, like, oh, you've grown a lot, you might think, like, I was, like, a bad person before, but I don't think of it like that. Like, I say I've grown a lot, but I just think about where I am right now. So I think that I'm very proud of you. Like, I, I don't know. I feel like, your growth is really something that, like, influenced my life. It's made me not want to make the same decisions that you made before. But again, I'm not saying that in a bad way. It's just like, I feel like you can learn from every situation. And I feel like learning from someone who's literally like 50% of my DNA is like I feel like that's a very detrimental thing to like be learning from. So yeah, I really do appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, and I'm gonna quote you. What you said was, "I said, baby girl, it's okay. It's okay to cry. You're like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, pops, you've grown so much because before you were like, I got them crocodile tears." I'm like, nah, you're good. Like, it's okay. And I'm just gonna go just a step further. Like Kennedy and I and JC, you can vouch for us because you're the brother and my son, but you're like kind of on the outside looking in. But Kennedy and I are exactly alike. Like we are both
Yes,
emotional. We both have the same attitude. Like we are literally identical.
you are the
And
same
it is,
person.
yeah, we're the same person. And so it's so true. Like when people are like, you see something in somebody else that you don't like, that's because you don't like that about yourself. And that's what it was for me. It was like I would see you be so emotional, and I don't like that about myself because I'm an emotional person. Emotions, it doesn't necessarily just have to be angry. Like I get sad and I get all that. Like I have all those emotions as well. So I saw those things in you that I didn't like in myself, and I didn't know how to communicate that or get over that or get through that or work through that. So yeah, I see that.
Yeah, it's interesting. One thing I've learned from Mike is that kids are basically a big mirror, and when you see things that you don't like in them, it's like it either comes from you or it comes from your significant other. And so, seriously, and so just understanding that is like, all right, like I know for a while Mike went through a phase where he just said, I don't care. Like you tell him to do something, like, I don't care, I don't care. And I was like, hey man, stop saying I don't care. And I swear to you, not 5 minutes later, he was like, Daddy, I don't like that I'm in trouble. And I was like, I don't care. And I said, oh, I literally caught myself and I said out loud, I said, well, I guess I got some work to do. But no, it's interesting. I think that if you're willing and open, children can really reveal to you things that you need to work on about yourself, which isn't a bad thing. Me and Adrena talk a lot, and I'm going to misquote her, but the gist of what she says is like, we're all just big children carrying around trauma and hurt from from our childhood. And the sooner that we deal with that, the better off that we'll be.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And Kennedy, that's kind of like what you and I said. Kennedy was making fun of me. She was like, I'm only 20 and I'm happy I'm figuring this stuff out now instead of when I'm 60 like you, Pops. I'm not 60. But it's so true, though. Like, she's figuring this stuff out now. Like, had I been able to, like, learn the things that she's learning now, but I didn't have this relationship with my parents where I could come to them and talk to them about, my emotions and tell them, like, I'm feeling this way or whatever. And maybe I could have, but I never did. But I think that we've always, my ex-wife and I, like we've always allowed our kids um, that that ability to just speak to us. Like as long as you're respectful, you can talk to us about stuff. And so we've always presented that. And even though it was challenging, to hear those things like, look, you're not doing this, you're not doing that, you're not doing this, and to take a look at the man in the mirror, I'm so happy and so proud of them. Like that, how brave that is for your kid to come to you and say, look, I don't like this. I don't like the way you're treating me, and I don't even like being around you. Like, I'm like, damn, man, I don't even want to be around me. Like, damn, am I that bad? And then you start to go through that phase of the pity party. And I was going through my own pity party of my kids don't want to be around me. And they're like, yeah, nah, Negro, they don't, because you yelling and screaming like when they do something. So I had to acknowledge those things. So yeah, man, I'm happy that we're all like in a good place now. King, did you have something? I thought you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was gonna say like like what I said about, I'm glad that I'm working at this on this like while I'm 20. I think it really is important. I feel like for parents to like emphasize to their children like ways to do self-care because first I learned this through my therapist and like journaling and like, just working on myself, reflecting and stuff. But I don't know if I would be like as far in like my self-reflection journey if you haven't changed the way that you have. Because it's just like, I don't know, I feel like it doesn't always take like a role model, but I feel like, being able to see that like someone can change like in such a significant way, especially like, like I was saying, like someone who's so similar to you. It's just like a lot of people will like be like, oh, well, I was raised like this, so I'm just like that. But I feel like I've always had the mindset where it's just like, you don't have to be like that because I didn't want to be like you. I don't want to grow up to be an angry person. Like, I don't want to be like that. But seeing your growth and seeing the fact that like you don't have to be like that. It doesn't matter how old you are. I mean, I'm not trying to throw shots, but I'm like, it doesn't matter how old you are. Like, really, you do not have to be like that. But I do think it is a lot easier when you're young and like when you're able to, like before you start, I think in your 20s, that's when you start like forming like habits for real. I think the habits that I'm trying to form are like self-care and like reflecting on myself and reflecting on the people around me and just seeing what kind of traits that I do want to have and what kind of person that I do want to be. So I think that you also like really do encourage me to look at things like in that perspective too.
Appreciate that, man. How about you, Jay? Any closing arguments from you?
What I was going to say before that is, Kenny, you said something in there that I think was really big. People will say like, "Oh, I was just raised like that. That's who I am."
Mm-hmm.
And when you really unpack that, all that is just an excuse not to self-reflect,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just an excuse for bad behavior. So I would encourage people that have those thoughts like, "That's just who I am. I'm just an honest person. I only know how to be honest," or my parents did it this way, and I grew up fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Like get away from those things and just listen. Something that I really work on with Mike is I try not to tell him how he's feeling. I just ask him. So when kids are younger and they fall down and they cry, it's easy to be like, man, nothing wrong with you, get up. And so what I started doing with him was I was like, okay, bud, like he would start crying. I was like, are you hurt or are you scared? He was like, I got scared. And I'm like, all right, you want to sit down for a little bit? He was like, nope, I'm fine, and just go right back to playing again. So things like that, where it's like just understanding that, look, we all have emotions, and as a parent, it's not our job to tell children what they're feeling or things like that. It's our job as parents are to help guide them through this life. So yeah.
No, I couldn't agree more, man. I couldn't agree more with both of y'all, and I'm super proud of both of you all for just hopping on here. This conversation, it's easier now because we're all in a different places in our lives. Like I'm in a great place with you, Jay. I'm in a great place with you, Kennedy. In a great place with all my kids. But it would be difficult if we were all still the same. So one of the things I just want to make sure that all dads know is like, yo, you can change. Like the opportunity is there for you. Listen to your kids because they may be telling you it may be subtle. It may not be as direct as my kids were with me, but listen to them though. You got to listen. You got to open your ears and you got to listen and you got to be willing to change. You got to be willing to look at the man in the mirror and be like, nah, there's some things that I'm missing here. And that's what I had to do. I had to reflect on myself like, damn, like, nah, there's some things that I'm missing. And if this is hurting my kids, that's the last thing what I want to do is I don't ever want to hurt them. So I encourage you guys to do that. And for you kids out there, man, maybe you're not as brave as my kids to be able to come to me and say, hey, Pops, there's an issue here. But try it. Try it. You never know. You never know what the reaction could be. And if the reaction is the positive one, maybe your relationship can grow between you and your father and your mother. But yeah, that was our episode today. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. You guys are super dope for doing this, Kennedy and JC. So I really appreciate you guys very, very much. In a couple of weeks, we will get back to the last pillar, which is physical. And that's one thing I will say. I always showed up. Like no matter what, I was always there. So I'm going to end it on that note right there. And I appreciate y'all for tuning in again. And remember, dope. I don't know why she's laughing, but you are.